Hi, I'm Zaahida from liveinspired.co.za, and in this video I'm going to be sharing tips with you on how to forgive someone who's not even sorry. Now, when I mentioned the concept of forgiveness to clients, I can actually see them bristle up. The immediate reaction is how and why? Why would I want to forgive someone who shows absolutely no remorse, who has not even apologized to me? And even if I wanted to, how would I even begin doing that? And forgiving someone who doesn't seem to acknowledge what they have done as being wrong, who has hurt you deeply, who has betrayed you, can seem like the hardest thing. However, what I found in my personal life and in the lives of clients, if you want to create a life that is inspiring, if you want to create a life that is filled with peace and joy and success, then the emotional baggage that comes with holding on to a grudge and holding on to the hurt that someone else has caused you actually holds you back on your path. It sabotages you in ways that you may not even be able to imagine. So forgiveness of someone else actually liberates us. So the harder it is to forgive someone, the greater the liberation, the greater the sense of freedom that comes with forgiving them. So as I mentioned earlier, when I first mentioned the concept of forgiveness to clients in their path of healing and moving forward, the immediate reaction is how? Why would I want to forgive someone who has hurt me so deeply, who has betrayed me, who might even do the same thing again if I let them? No doubt it is the hardest thing to do, but the one thing that you can do that brings so much peace and joy into your life. Think about it, all of that energy that was caught up in hating this person, all the thoughts that you have running through your mind on what they did to you, that is all bogging you down. That is all energy and attention and focus that can be used far more constructively. There's a famous saying about anger and hate being like poison. We drink it and we expect the other person to die. And this pretty much sums up the price of not forgiving someone. Not forgiving someone means that we're holding on to all that negative energy, we're holding on to all that baggage that is holding us back in our life, that is keeping us from experiencing the joy and the peace that the present moment has to offer. So when I start exploring this topic of forgiveness with clients, I often find that forgiveness is a misunderstood concept, and there are certain myths around forgiveness that I'm hoping to debunk with you today. And these myths actually make forgiveness more difficult than it needs to be. So debunking these myths means that forgiveness can be a little bit easier for you going forward. So as I debunk these myths today, I'm hoping that by the end of this video, you will start to see the process of forgiveness a little bit differently. So the first myth about forgiveness is the person needs to deserve it. Now, this is simply not true. Very often the people who betray us, sometimes even on purpose, they may not necessarily deserve it. How do we even know if they deserve it? So this whole process of forgiveness has very little to do with the other person, and it has to do everything with you and your moving forward. So your entire intention, your entire purpose for wanting to forgive has nothing to do with the person who has hurt you, and it has everything to do with your commitment to your own healing. You owe it to yourself to let go of the emotional baggage that you have around this person, and that is the main reason you're doing this. You're doing this for your own peace. You're doing this for your own ability to move forward. This is not about the other person needing it. They may not even recognize that what they did was hurtful to you. That is not about you. This is your process of healing, and you owe it to yourself to let go of this baggage so you can live your best life. The next myth about forgiveness is people often have this fear that if I forgive the person, then it will open me up to the same behavior in future. They'll just do it to me all over again, and I just can't go through that hurt again. And this is where I say boundaries are so important, because forgiving without boundaries can be even more detrimental than not forgiving itself. So if you have forgiven someone, if you have tried your best to mend the relationship and you find that they still exhibit the same toxic behavior, if they are still not willing to act in a way that is consistent with your boundaries, then you need to decide how much of a role they play in your life, how much of influence they have over you. And this is something that requires a little bit of inner work. So you may want to engage the help of a therapist or a coach to involve them in it, so that you can kind of figure out what your boundaries are around this person, and you need to decide for yourself what kind of role you will be allowing them to play in your life and how much influence you will allow them to have in your life. So forgiveness is important, but boundaries are equally, if not more important. And working on boundaries in your relationships are going to help you overall. And as much as we can't avoid hurt altogether, consciously working on boundaries in your relationship will actually help you in all your relationships. So you're less likely to end up in the same situation, that you end up learning the lessons that you need to going forward, so you don't find yourself in the same situation. The next myth that I find around forgiveness, a lot of people feel that forgiveness is about condoning. Forgiveness is about condoning the other person's behavior. It isn't. Forgiving someone does not mean that you condone or you are approving of what they do. It does not mean that you are justifying what they do either. It simply says that I will no longer allow what has happened to me to define me, or to have control and power over my reactions, over my emotions, over my state of being. So when you think about it from this perspective, forgiveness is about claiming back your power rather than allowing the other person to influence how you are feeling. You say, I'm going to influence how I feel. I will dictate how I feel. You will no longer define me by your actions. Because as long as we hold a grudge against someone, we're actually giving our power over to them. Every time you see them, every time you think about them, you have an emotional reaction. So you're disempowering yourself. Effectively, you're telling them, you tell me how I should feel about myself at any given time. Forgiving this person means that they no longer have an impact or an influence over your emotions. So you're taking back your personal power. You get to decide, you get to choose how you feel in any given moment. And that is truly, truly liberating. So if you're finding forgiveness difficult, ask yourself, is it worth it? Is it worth allowing somebody else to have control over your peace of mind? Is it worth it? Is it worth the price that you're paying? And if it's not, then you just might be ready to forgive this person. The next myth around forgiveness is forgiving means forgetting. Now, some people have this notion that when we forgive, we just forget everything as well. Not always, not in all circumstances anyway. Many of the conflicts that we have in our lives actually reflect to us the lessons, the valuable lessons and insights we can gain from life. And we may need to do some inner work around this. So the process of forgiving causes us to do some inner reflection and some inner work around what are the lessons that I need to learn from this? What can I take away from the situation? So going forward, I'm less likely to encounter something like this. And to truly forgive another person, you will probably have to work through some uncomfortable parts within yourself. True forgiveness actually requires inner work and healing that will leave you changed in profound ways. So the very process of forgiveness actually offers you the potential for your own personal growth and your own personal development. It's almost impossible to truly forgive someone without it leaving you better in some way. Because in the process, you will have to accept certain parts of yourself that you haven't been able to prior to this, and you will probably have to let go of some judgments you have been holding around the situation as well. The next myth is that forgiveness is instantaneous. It is not. Forgiveness is much more a process. Now, very often we can end up sabotaging ourselves because we want to get ahead of ourselves and be somewhere that we're not. So we're like, no, I'm over it, I've forgiven him, I've forgotten it, I've let go of it. But the fact is we haven't, and we know that we haven't, because we're still holding on to the emotions around it. We're still holding on to the hurt and the resentment. How you know you have truly forgiven someone is when they can no longer get an emotional reaction from you, and you no longer feel an emotional reaction whenever you think about the situation that has passed. In some ways, this is actually worse than not forgiving, because we're actually in denial, and it holds us back from forgiving, because you can't really fix something that you don't acknowledge. Many of us feel somehow less than for not being able to forgive as quickly as we would like to. And the fact is, feeling hurt and feeling sad and feeling all these emotions around it, it's human. It's part of the process. It's normal. Don't judge yourself for feeling that way. It's very difficult to forgive someone else when you're busy judging and condemning and blaming yourself for even feeling the way that you do. So part of the process of forgiveness is allowing yourself to go through those emotions. Allow yourself to go through them so you can shift through them, so you can do some of the inner healing and inner work. And again, you might want to engage the help of a coach or a therapist in this process to help you along. But do understand that the fact that you feel these emotions does not in any way make you less than or mean that there's something wrong with you somehow. Now, I'm not saying that you need to play victim and pity yourself and stay in this space. But if you want to truly forgive, you have to honor where you are. You have to be honest with yourself about where you are in your process of forgiveness. So remember, it is extremely important to be compassionate with yourself through the process. Allow yourself to feel the emotions. Give yourself some time and space to work through the emotions, to do your inner healing. And remember to be patient with yourself through the process, because forgiveness is a process. The last myth that I want to debunk today is that forgiveness is about the other person. It isn't. The process of forgiveness is completely for you. Nelson Mandela explained this so beautifully. When he was leaving prison, he said the following: "As I walked out the door toward the gate that would lead to my freedom, I knew that if I didn't leave behind my bitterness and hatred, I'd still be in prison." And this sums it up absolutely beautifully. When we don't forgive, it's we who suffer. It's we who become imprisoned by our own emotions, by our own hurt and anger, and it holds us back from becoming the best version of ourselves. It holds us back from experiencing love and joy and peace in other areas of our life. So forgiveness is definitely something that is done for you and not for the other person. So forgiveness is actually a gift that you give to yourself. As difficult as it is, it's something that frees you in the most amazing ways. And it's only when we do forgive that we realize what a burden is lifted off us. We suddenly feel so much lighter than we did prior to that. Wouldn't it be amazing to enter the next year, 2018, or the next week or tomorrow feeling lighter and less weighed down by your hurts? Is there anyone that you need to forgive in your life? Is there any hurt and betrayal that you need to let go of? It doesn't matter how long you've been holding on to it. If you feel like it's time, it can be done. And knowing that it's about you and it's about doing what's best for you makes it a little bit easier to let go of some of the pain around it. Did you like this video? If you did, please go ahead and hit the like button. Remember to subscribe, and remember to share it with your friends and family who you think might benefit as well. Here on my channel, you will find insights into how to become the best version of yourself. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video.